welcome to Research Quest Live. We're so excited to have you here this morning, joining us for one of our live classes. My name is Tracy. I'm going to be your instructor today. And today we are going to be starting a new investigation. Let me go ahead and share with you. Today we are working on Change in the Uinta Mountains. How is energy transfer and matter cycling affected in a changing ecosystem, part 1? Okay, so that is our investigation for today. Now, we are going to be working on this investigation today and tomorrow, and then we will be starting another investigation on Wednesday and Thursday. And on Friday, of course, we have our guest speaker for class. Now, every day we will also have a guest speaker at 11 a.m. And so we hope you can join us for many of our classes this week, as well as our Q&A sessions with our guest speakers. Today, we are going to be chatting with Dr. Bryn Dentinger, who is the curator of mycology at the Natural History Museum of Utah. So we're very excited to be speaking with Bryn. And just a couple things to note before we get started in class today. All right, so the Research Quest Live program is a program designed for middle school students. Of course, all are welcome to participate. And we have lots of younger students out there that are joining us. Maybe they just need a little extra help with a partner or a sibling or a parent that might be there to help them. The middle school program that we've developed is designed to address science standards and language arts standards. If you are a teacher listening in and you want to learn more about how this program aligns with both Utah state standards and national standards, please visit the Research Quest website. Go to the teacher support tab. There you will find lots of resources about that standards alignment, as well as rubrics and instructional guides if you want to facilitate this program in the future with your students. So lots of resources there at researchquest.org. And if you're a teacher, we want you to know that today we are going to be asking questions, analyzing and interpreting data, constructing explanations to real phenomena-based questions. Okay, so that's a little bit about what to expect. All right, so let me go ahead and share with you my screen for the Research Quest website. And maybe this is what you see right now. So on the Research Quest website, we have the viewer where I am. Now the viewer, you can adjust as you need to. So you can shrink that if you want to hide my video for a minute based on what you're doing. You can pause my video at any time. You can adjust the volume right here, or you can make it full screen. Okay, so you can see I've got that full screen now. I'm going to go ahead and shrink that back down to this normal size. Also in the viewer, we have the Research Assistant Notebook link. Okay, I want you to go ahead and if you can, click on that link right there, and we're going to open that up. This is our Research Assistant Notebook where we're going to be doing some of our work today. Also, here in the viewer, we have the Ask a Question button. Okay, you can click on the Ask a Question button and it will take you to this page. And of course, I would love to know, let me add my video right here so you can see my face. I would love to know who you are and where you're from. We're so excited to have all the students that are joining us today. So let me go ahead, I'm gonna write just as an example. So it says your first name, where do you live? I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. And, you know, you can tell us anything that you want. If you want to share anything like your age or how many classes you've done, or you could just say hi. And you can go ahead and click submit that to the RQ Live team. We would love to hear from you to know who is joining us for class today. All right, at any point during our class, if you have a question, if you have a technical question, you're struggling with something, or you have a question about what we're talking about and studying, you can ask that there. All right, let's go ahead and get logged in. So it says enter the code. So it's RQLIVE that I just had up on that slide. Go ahead and select submit. Go ahead and select, we're doing change in the Uinta Mountains, normal or not. Select get started. Today we are working on this green box. It says, how is energy transfer and matter cycling affected in a changing ecosystem? I'm going to go ahead and click there, and it will take me to this first step. All right, so today we are going to be working on steps 1 through 6, and we're going to be doing that together. If at any point you need more time on a step, you can always pause my video. Like I mentioned, we are going to be using the Research Assistant notebook. Now, a couple things to just be aware of when using this notebook. Right now, I'm viewing it on my internet browser, okay? If you want to download this so you can save it and save your work, that might be a good idea. You can also print it if you have access to a printer. And you can pause my video if you need to and go ahead and do one of those two things. So let's say if we download it. Okay, I'm going to download it onto my computer. You can type right into the browser, which I'm going to go ahead and do. But there's a chance if you've closed this window, you might lose your work. And if you're joining us again tomorrow, you probably want to make sure that you save your work that you've completed so far. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump back over here. We're going to get started on the gather step. Like I said, we're going to be working on gather and analyze today. Tomorrow, we'll pick up on analyze and we'll complete through communicate tomorrow. Let's go ahead and read this introduction. I'll read it out loud to you. How is energy transfer and matter cycling impacted in a changing ecosystem? Today, we're going to investigate a phenomenon that has been taking place in the Uinta Mountains of Utah. Like our scientists, you'll use your critical thinking skills to gather information about the phenomenon, analyze your data, and interpret your analysis so you can communicate your findings with your peers. Okay, now this first step, you can see here I'm on step 1. Okay. And on step 1, we're going to watch the video. It says, hi, I am Isabel Perez Vega. I work at the Natural History Museum of Utah. In this video, Dr. Mitch will be introducing you to the phenomenon we'll be investigating today and receive instructions for the first part of your investigation. Be sure to listen for information that might be new to you. And I'm going to guess that there's quite a bit of new information in this video. All right, I'm going to play the video on my screen. If you have any issues with the sound or the quality, then I would recommend that you pause my video. You can watch the video on your own screen. Also, I would recommend making the viewer, so my window, making it full screen so you can see the video in full screen, okay?
This car wash is a big machine. It's got thousands of parts to wash hundreds of cars every day. Each part plays a critical role. When all the parts are in good condition, the machine works just fine. This is the forest of the Uinta Mountains. In many ways, it's like a machine that sustains life on Earth by cleaning water and air. It also absorbs heat and helps regulate the Earth's temperature. Plus, it's a source of jobs and fun. It's a pretty great machine. Like other machines, this ecosystem has many parts: plants, animals, and natural features. Like any other machine, it runs on a flow of energy, but it doesn't use electricity or gas for fuel. It gets the energy from the light of a star 90 million miles away, the sun. And to play their roles, this machine's parts eat each other for fuel. That keeps the energy flowing. Functions, machine parts, energy flow. In these ways, a force has a lot in common with a man-made machine. So, what happens when a machine part breaks? It's an important question because right now, one of this forest parts is in danger. Over the past 10 years, lodgepole pine trees have died at a faster rate than we've ever seen. They make up almost half of all the trees here. As a producer, they convert energy from the sun into usable fuel for the rest of the ecosystem. Climate changes and an exploding beetle population and a deadly fungus have combined
to destroy many more pines than usual. We can say this forest's lodgepole pine population is its broken part. Can nature fix or replace that broken part with something else, like another species of trees? Or if the pines disappear, will this forest collapse? Remember, this forest helps sustain life, not just the plants and animals, but you and me too. If this place can't repair itself to perform the vital functions, what will happen to us? To figure out if this forest can fix itself, first, we need to know how it works normally when nothing's broken. After this video, drag and drop species from the food web into their roles or trophic levels. Seeing the roles and mapping the flow of energy will give you an idea of how the parts of the machine work together. When you're done, we'll take a closer look at some of the surprising parts of energy flow here, like animal waste and decomposing flesh. See you then.
All right, great. So in that video, we just heard from Dr. Mitch Power, who's the curator of botany at the Natural History Museum of Utah. And he shared with us some really interesting information as we're thinking about the phenomenon of the lodgepole pine trees that are dying. How can we think about the way that the lodgepole pines fit into the greater ecosystem, and how plants and animals and even us humans rely on this ecosystem and the different organisms that are found there. And so we need to understand that bigger picture in order for us to understand how things will be impacted. So we're going to work on that next step. I also just want to say hi to a couple students who have written in. So we've had Cade from California, who is joining us this morning. So we're very happy to have Cade here. And also Isla from Massachusetts. So thanks for saying hi and good morning to both of you. All right, let's go ahead and jump back to the website. All right, so in the video, Dr. Mitch shared with us the model that we're going to be working on. So I'm going to go ahead and select next. Now, here I'm looking at this model. It says, what does normal look like in this montane forest? Understanding how an ecosystem works normally is key to predicting the impact of any changes that may happen in the future. Use the food web below to develop an energy model that groups organisms by their roles, or as Dr. Mitch refers to them, trophic levels. This will help us visualize the parts of this montane ecosystem and better understand how all these organisms function together. To get started, click on an organism below, look at its diet, and then drag it to the correct trophic level. All right, I'm going to start on this step, and I would like us to start together, and then you will have time to work on your own. Also, you probably noticed some of these words in blue. I'm going to go ahead and read through those. That way you know what those words are. It might be new to you, but maybe not. Okay, so when we say ecosystem, what do we mean? An ecosystem is a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment, okay? So we're thinking about all the living things found in that place, how they interact together, and how they interact with the environment around them. Trophic levels. A trophic level is the group of organisms within an ecosystem which occupy the same level in a food chain. Okay, so the food chain, when we think about that, we're thinking about these predator-prey relationships, so consumer relationships, what eats what. And so a trophic level is a group of organisms that all share the same types of food or place in the food chain. So what are the trophic levels we're looking at? Well, we have decomposers, consumers, and producers. So decomposers are organisms such as bacteria and fungi that break down dead organisms and waste into nutrients that can be reused by plants. Okay, so sometimes people call these, they're like the cleanup crew, right? So they help decompose anything that's dying, or they decompose living things and they return them back into nutrients that plants then are able to use. So who are the plants, right? Those are the producers. Producers are all the plants in an ecosystem. While there are some rare exceptions, most ecosystems rely only on plants to turn sunlight, nutrients from the soil, carbon dioxide, and water into reusable energy that can be eaten by consumers and used to sustain life throughout the ecosystem. Okay, so those are the producers. Now the consumers. Consumers are organisms that consume, in other words, eat, other organisms. They can be divided into three groups. You have primary consumers, they eat plants. Secondary consumers, they eat primary consumers and plants. And tertiary consumers that eat all consumers and plants, okay? So that's an important thing to remember. With tertiary, the difference between secondary and tertiary is that tertiary consumers eat all, both primary and secondary consumers, okay? Whereas secondary consumers only eat primary consumers. Now, what does all this mean? Let's take a look. All right, this thing here in the center kind of looks like a sun. It's not the sun. It's actually bacteria. And bacteria, as you can see, has connections to a lot of the organisms, actually all of them, pretty much in the system. So bacteria, their diet would be animal and plant waste and dead animals. Okay, so bacteria help break down, they eat the waste or the dead animals, and then they return those nutrients back into the soil. So I'm going to put bacteria here. They're a decomposer. All right, let's do a couple more. So if I hover and then click on any one of these organisms, it will show me their diet. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at, let's see, I want to look at pine grass. Okay, so pine grass, the diet of pine grass would be sunlight, nutrients from soil, water, and air. Okay, so I can see that the producers, it says here, they get their food, they rely on sunlight, nutrients from the soil, water, carbon dioxide. Okay, so I know that pine grass is a producer. All right, now let's get into something that's a little more tricky. Let's go ahead and look at some birds. Let's see, let's look at some birds. Okay, I'm gonna click on Cooper's hawk. It says here, the diet would be other birds like jays, robins, flickers, chipmunks, squirrels, mice, bats, okay? So this is an animal, a bird that eats other birds or mice or bats. Okay, so I'm gonna put them. Now, when I move over here to the consumers, remember we have primary, secondary, tertiary, okay? So I know that this Cooper's hawk is high in the food chain because it eats other animals. Okay, let's go ahead and find another bird. Let's see here, let's go ahead and do this one. Red crossbill. Now this diet for this bird, it says it only eats conifer seeds. Okay, so it only eats seeds. Now I'm going to put that over here on primary because I know that it only eats plant materials. It only eats seeds. All right, let's find one more bird. Yep. Here we go. Red-naped sapsucker bird. Now the diet here says insects, tree sap, and fruit. Okay, so I can see it eats fruit and tree sap, but it also eats insects. Okay, so insects, of course, probably eat at least some of these insects that it would eat plants, and some insects eat other insects. Okay, so I'm going to say this is a secondary consumer because it falls in the middle. Excellent. Okay, so you can see I've gotten my model started. I want you to go ahead and be working on your model. If you drag and drop something and you take a guess and it goes back, that actually means that that's incorrect. Okay, so then you want to keep working to figure out, where does this one go? All right, go ahead and work on your model. You can watch me on my screen. I'm going to be working on my model, and we're going to have a few minutes to work, and then we'll check in right after that. I also have received a note that the video is not working for some of you who are listening. If you did not have the video play on your side for some reason, you can, let me show you, in my video here, you can pause my video, you can rewind, go back to a different part of the video, and you can go back and watch the video with me. So I played the video with me on my side. So go into the viewer and you can just go back in and rewind to a different part of the video so you can watch the video we watched together with Dr. Mitch. Okay, let's go ahead and get started on our model. All right, I know you're working hard on building your models. We did receive a question from Marie in Salt Lake City. Marie is wondering about the beaver, which here has been listed. Let me find it. Here it is. The beaver has been listed as a secondary consumer, but the diet lists tree bark, roots, buds, water plants. Now, we got a question from Marie saying, I don't understand. This seems like it should be a primary consumer. And I think that's a great catch. So thank you for noticing that. And we're going to double check and look into it. But I believe that this has been entered incorrect in the way that the website organized it. So we'll have to fix that and have it move down here to primary consumer. So thank you to Marie. And we'll make sure that we correct that. All right, I'm going to give you just another 30 seconds or so to be working on your model. Actually, maybe a little bit longer, because I'm going to move over here to the Research Assistant Notebook, and I would like you to record what you've observed. So again, we're on step 2 of the website. Here in the Research Assistant Notebook, we need to work on step 2, and we're going to describe these trophic levels. Okay, so based on the model that we created here, I want you to describe that level, and maybe you could even include some example organisms. So here I would want to describe what are decomposers, and I could include some of these example decomposers. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on that. So I want you to finish up here, just a little bit, less than a minute probably to get this finished. Go ahead and be working on your Research Assistant Notebook on page 1 at the top. Okay, so go ahead and fill this in. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and keep moving along. So I'm going to select next. And I'm going to go ahead and read out loud step 3. There's a lot of text here. So if you want to read along with me, or you can mute my video, of course, or pause me and you can read it on your own. So let's go ahead and read a little more about energy flow and matter cycling. Okay, those are 2 different things. We're going to look at energy flow and matter cycling. So it says ecosystems are kind of like machines. Okay, that's what we saw in the video with Dr. Mitch, right? And he was in the car wash. Okay, so we can think of the ecosystem like as a giant machine that are made of many parts that work together to function. Like a machine, an ecosystem needs fuel to run. We call the fuel that keeps ecosystems and machines running energy. However, while machines may get their energy from electricity or gas, ecosystems get their energy from the sun. So how does sunlight turn into usable energy? Well, you guessed it, through plants. Plants are called producers because they produce energy by using photosynthesis to transform light, water, and carbon dioxide into glucose, an excellent energy source for living organisms. Okay, so just again, double checking, producers are all the plants in an ecosystem. Okay, there are some rare exceptions to this, but most ecosystems rely on plants to turn sunlight, nutrients from the soil, carbon dioxide, and water into reusable energy, or into usable energy, excuse me, that can be eaten by consumers and used to sustain life throughout the ecosystem. Okay, most of us are familiar with photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is how the plant, again, takes the sunlight and turns that into energy. Now, what is glucose? That maybe is a word we're not familiar with. Glucose is a simple sugar made by plants during photosynthesis. During this process, carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight are combined using energy from the sun. This allows the plant to produce both glucose and oxygen. The oxygen is released into the air and the glucose or sugar is used to feed the plant as it grows, developing flowers, fruit, and seeds. All right, when a consumer eats a plant, it takes the matter and energy in that plant and uses the energy to grow, move around, reproduce, and other functions necessary for living. So then, when another organism eats the first organism, energy and matter that weren't already used by that first organism are passed on again and again and again until decomposers get a hold of the carcass of the organism. Okay, decomposers. Remember, decomposers are organisms such as bacteria and fungi that break down dead organisms and waste into nutrients that can be reused by plants. Also, I'll just add a quick little plug. Be sure to join us at 11 a.m. and we are going to be having a conversation with Dr. Brand Dentinger, who is the curator of mycology. And so he's going to be talking about fungi and he studies fungi for the museum. And so we're really excited to be meeting with him. If you have a question for him as we continue our work about mushrooms or anything related to that, so fungi, you can go ahead and submit that on the Ask a Question button. Just say, I have a question for the scientist. That's going to be later today at 11 a.m. All right, decomposers provide an essential service for the ecosystem by breaking down the matter and energy in an organism into nutrients that a plant then draws from the soil and uses to grow. Because of this, matter is never lost. Each atom just cycles through a system over and over as plants use nutrients to grow and organisms eat those plants. Other organisms eat those organisms, and then eventually decomposers break everything down again for the cycle to begin again. Energy is consumed alongside matter in a system, but unlike matter, energy is used by organisms for life and turned into other forms of energy. That doesn't all get transferred from organism to organism. Okay, we're going to be talking about that a lot more. Okay, so if you don't quite understand what that's talking about, don't worry, that's an introduction. We are going to be thinking about that more. In the model you're about to work on, we are focusing on energy flow. Although Matter is also moving through the system. Think about how energy moves as one organism eats another. The direction of the energy, or the arrow, shows the direction that energy is moving. So let's get started. I'm going to select next. Here I'm on step 4. Okay, so it says, how does energy flow in the ecosystem? This ecosystem gets its energy from the light of the sun. Plants use photosynthesis to turn sunlight into usable energy that moves through the trophic levels as plants and animals are consumed by other organisms. Complete your energy model of this montane forest by drawing lines that show the flow of energy through the system. Click on your model to start drawing an arrow. Click again to complete your arrow. And to erase an arrow, click on the eraser. Then click on the arrow you want to erase. Okay, I'm going to get started on my screen and just show you how it works. And then I would like you to work on your own, really thinking about how to create a model where we can see the energy flow in the ecosystem. Okay, when I scroll down, I can see here that I have the sun. And there are a couple of little info boxes here about matter, if you want to go ahead and read that, or about the sun, okay? Those are just little helpful hints to help you get started. Now, I'm going to draw an arrow from the sun. So I click on the sun, and I'm going to draw it up to the producers. Okay, now, like I said, if you draw an arrow and you want to erase it, you click on the eraser, and then you can erase that. Oh, let me do it again. And you can click on the eraser and click on the arrow just like that. Okay, and then my little mouse pointer turns right back into the tool to draw the arrows. Okay, so I actually like that arrow, so I'm going to draw it again. Okay, so I know that the sun is a source of energy for all the producers, right? They rely on the sun and the environment to get everything that they need to grow and live. Okay, so that's my first arrow. Now I want you to be thinking about what other arrows do I need in this model to show all the different relationships? Okay, so I know that primary consumers rely on producers. So I'm going to go ahead and add that arrow. Now, I'm going to give you a couple minutes just to be thinking about what arrows do we need to continue to draw to represent all of these different interactions. And I'll be working on my side as well, but go ahead and be working on your side. And then we'll review the models together. I went ahead and I filled out my research assistant notebook. I noticed that my model was very similar to Dr. Mitch's model. I noticed how the producers support, the sunlight supports the producers. So when I click on that arrow, it says right here, sunlight is one of the essential elements a plant needs to make food. With sunlight, water from the ground, and carbon dioxide from the air, a plant can turn the sun's energy into food using photosynthesis. Okay, I noticed that the primary consumers generally eat only producers, which are plants. Energy is transferred from a producer to a primary consumer when a producer is consumed. Okay, so for example, the Rocky Mountain elk eats pine grass. Okay, pretty straightforward. We maybe did not realize the first time we filled this out that secondary consumers, of course, may eat primary consumers and also producers. Okay, energy is transferred from a producer to a secondary consumer when a producer is consumed by a secondary consumer. Almost as like a tongue twist. Okay, so it says, for example, this happens when the red-tailed squirrel eats the seeds of a lodgepole pine. And of course, we also have tertiary consumers that also eat producers. Okay, so for example, when a black bear eats pine grass. All right, now it might be a little more obvious as you were working on it, that energy is transferred from a primary consumer to a secondary consumer. Okay, you may not have noticed as you were filling this out that energy is also transferred from a primary consumer to a tertiary consumer. All right, last one, secondary consumer, of course, is maybe consumed by a tertiary consumer. So when a cougar eats a northern flying squirrel, we have energy transfer there. Now, you might not have realized this too, but we have, of course, the decomposers. So for all of the trophic levels, the decomposers transfer energy from all of the different trophic levels. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like. So we have, for example, an insect consumes and breaks down the scat of a carcass of a black bear. Or we have bacteria that consumes and breaks down the fecal pellets of a rainbow trout. Or we have bacteria maybe consumes and breaks down the carcass of a snowshoe hare. Or an earthworm consumes and breaks down fallen aspen leaves. Okay, so decomposers, you can see, are a critical part of this entire picture. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and select next. Now, in my research assistant notebook, a couple of things that I noticed that I used to guess. I used to think that probably the primary consumers would be the largest group. But I thought it was really interesting in that model. You maybe noticed how many secondary consumers there are. So if you think of the organisms as like fitting into a pyramid, I at first thought that there would, of course, be many more primary consumers than secondary, and then very few tertiary. But I realized that there were actually many secondary consumers. So that's one thing that I noticed in my model. All right, we're gonna go ahead and watch this video together. And again, if you have any issue, you can pause my video stream and you can watch the video on your own screen. Also, you might want to make your viewer full screen while we watch the video together.
Produce, eat, and be eaten. That's the name of the game for the parts of this ecosystem. Even an apex predator like the bear gets dissolved into nutrients and minerals by bugs, bacteria, and fungus. Once the bear dies, of course. For producers like the lodgepole pine, well, they make their own food. They pluck carbon from the air, hydrogen from the water. With those atoms, they build their own branches, needles, and seeds. Sunlight shining on their needles fuels that whole plucking and building process. Everything else either gobbles up the plant's hard work and gets energy, or they get energy by eating the animals that ate the plants. But when one thing eats another, does all the energy get transferred from the prey to the predator? When the coyote eats the ground squirrel, does the coyote get all the energy that had been eaten earlier by the squirrel? What do you think? It would make sense. Just look at that plump, juicy squirrel. all those calories from plants stored up as meat and bones for the coyote to eat. But wait, the squirrel's got to use some of that fuel from the grasses and nuts for herself. Look at how she's scurrying, breathing, digging, even pooping. All that stuff requires energy. So she's using a lot of the energy she ate for herself to survive. It's used up before the coyote eats her. Same goes for this blade of grass. When it converts sunlight into energy, it uses some of that energy to do the carbon and hydrogen plucking and growing. So that energy is no longer there for the squirrel to eat by the time she finds it. In fact, a lot of the energy here gets used up before the next creature or decomposer can eat it. This used up energy is called energy loss. It's a big factor in the way all ecosystems work. How much energy do you think is lost in the cycle? Knowing this will help you figure out what the forest will need in order to replace its broken lodgepole pine part. Check out the simulator on your device. Use it to figure out how much energy is passed along when a predator eats a prey. You'll also see how much energy is lost. I think you'll be surprised by what you find.
Okay, excellent. So we saw in that video with Dr. Mitch, he was talking to us about the energy transfer in a system and how not all the energy is passed from one organism to the next in these consume patterns, right, in the trophic levels. And so he's talking about energy loss. Let's go ahead and select next, and we're going to dig a little deeper into what he was discussing. So how does energy flow in nature? It says use this simulator to look more closely at how energy flows in an ecosystem. Select 2 trophic levels and observe how energy flows from one level to another. Sometimes the path will be direct, like between producers and consumers, but other times you'll see energy moving through some of the other factors before it gets to its destination. Okay, you can go ahead and select that eye if you want a little more info. Now here's the simulator. Let me just share with you the key right here. So in the video that you're going to watch in the simulator, it's going to have matter represented as these purple arrows and energy transfer represented in these sort of orange arrows. Okay, now when you select factors, you can play around with this and select 2 different factors, and it's going to play. So let's just do producer to consumer. It's going to play a short model video. And watching this cottontail, I see both purple and orange arrows, right? So matter and energy were both being transferred from the plant to the rabbit, and it was getting that energy by eating the plant, right? So it's getting energy and matter. All right, now we are out of time for our class together, but this is the perfect step for you to continue working on your own. I want you to play around with selecting different factors, and you can mix and match the factors in different ways and observe what happens in the video. And again, pay attention to the purple, which is the matter cycling, and the orange color, that's the energy transfer. Okay, in the Research Assistant Notebook, you can work on step 7. It says analyze 2, draw and label a scene that tells your story of how the energy and matter are cycling in the ecosystem. Okay, I want you to work on this during study hall. We're going to have study hall for the next 30 minutes. Of course, that's plenty of time for you to both work on this step, play around with the simulator, and submit any questions that you might have for us. I will continue to be available as the instructor. If you need any help at all, don't hesitate. Also at 11 a.m., we are going to be speaking with Dr. Bryn Dentinger, who is the curator of mycology for the Natural History Museum of Utah. We're very excited to be chatting with him today. If you have questions for him, you can go ahead and you can submit those now with the Ask a Question button. Also, I should point out, if you are done with class for today, you can go ahead and fill out our feedback form. which is, there we go. Right here. And if you want to fill this out, you can receive a certificate for completing today's class. It also has some questions there that we would like you to respond to based on your work in your Research Assistant notebook. So go ahead and fill out the feedback form whenever you complete class today. And like I said, right now is study hall. I'm here to help you if you have any questions as you continue to work on step 7. We will pick up on step 7 tomorrow.